Hey everyone, Tristan back with another video, and in this video I thought I would talk about why I shoot with and why I like Leica M cameras, and also this will serve as kind of a mini review of this camera. This is the Leica M10-P. So let's just talk about the main reason why I like the M camera system and like Leica cameras. Mainly the first reason is because of their simplicity. I don't like cameras where there are tons of menu options that you have to choose from to make settings. Those kind of cameras are just really overly complex, and I just like a camera that goes down to the basics, reminds me of a film camera. And in fact, the original 35mm film camera was a Leica back in the day. Oscar Barnock, who was somebody that worked for Leica, who was one of the engineers there, basically he invented the 35mm film camera, and that was a Leica. So it does go back to history, and again, the Leica M cameras tend to be pretty simple to operate, with not a lot, the digital ones and the film ones, but mainly we're talking about digital here these days. There's just not a lot of menu options and buttons that you have to fiddle with. The full exposure triangle is available to you even with the camera off. In terms of ISO, f-stop, and shutter speed, they're all available to you to set, even before you turn the camera on. And that's pretty much all you really have to worry about in terms of using this camera. I really also like the rangefinder focusing system. I find that the manual focus on the rangefinder is just really nice, where you line up the two double images and all that kind of stuff. It's just a really nice system. It just makes a lot of sense. It just seems to get rid of a lot of any extraneous information and lets you do more pure photography. And that's kind of important. Like, the way that you feel when you're out there taking pictures has a lot to do with, I think, the pictures that you're going to get. And if you feel inspired when you're out there taking pictures and carrying a camera, that's, I think, 50% of it right there. Also, the Leica M lenses are literally like the best in the world for the size that they come in. The Leica M lenses, especially the ones made by Leica, are just really phenomenal glass, and the quality of them is just amazing. And they're in a nice small compact size. They're not real big, so you don't have to carry around a lot of heavy gear with Leica M systems, because the lenses and the camera itself tend to be really small. And also, don't underestimate the sort of swank factor. They're very swanky cameras. This is a camera that you can wear around your neck or on your shoulder or something, and it just looks very fashionable and very cool. Don't underestimate that aspect of it as well. A camera that you're wearing with you all the time, you're going to get a lot more pictures with it, and a lot better pictures with it that way, versus a big camera that just sits in your backpack or something like that. So don't underestimate that aspect of it as well. But mainly, I like the Leica Digital M cameras because they harken back to history, and it just leads to more of a pure sort of photography for me. A lot of naysayers are going to say Leica is overpriced, and I would tend to agree with that. I mean, the Leica lenses and the Leica M cameras do tend to be very expensive, and I think ideally they should be almost like half as much as they are. On the other hand, they are in some ways an investment, because they do retain their value fairly well, especially the lenses, like on the used market and stuff like that. So you know, you are outlaying a good chunk of money for a Leica lens or a Leica camera, but, you know, keep in mind that you will recoup some of that, at least more than, you know, like say a Canon or Nikon or something like that, in terms of, you know, the value that they retain. Basically, they're just really cool cameras. They look cool. They perform amazingly well. The Leica lenses and Leica glass is really top notch, especially for the type of photography that I like to do, which tends to be wide open photography with a very shallow depth of field and really nice bokeh. Leica just can't be beat for that. I mean, that is like the Leica look. And all of the Leica lenses are optimized to shoot wide open to get a real dreamy, you know, type of look to the photography. And, you know, my theory on that in terms of nice bokeh and shallow depth of field is that that really talks to the heart. Those kinds of images talk to the heart, and there's just something about those kinds of images that feel very soulful and very like humanistic. Like I think humans like to see those kinds of images. They evoke a feeling or emotion in people. And maybe one of the reasons for that I've actually heard posited in the past is that because when we are babies, our eyes don't focus as well as when we're adults. We see, you know, a lot of blurriness and shallow depth of field when we're babies. So in some ways, subconsciously, those types of images remind us of, you know, when we were babies, just subconsciously, and kind of evoke a sense of emotion. And so there's no better tool for that type of evocative photography, whether it be portraits or street photography or even like still life or things like that. The Leica lenses are just great for that type of photography. Now moving on to this camera here, the Leica M10-P, and basically my review of it, I just have to say that, you know, it's a really great camera. I had the M10 before and I ended up selling it and getting a pretty good deal on selling it. And I wanted to get the M10-P. It's not a lot different than the M10, but I really love the script, the engraved script on the top plate. I think that just looks so cool and swanky, and way better than having like a blank top plate. So I love that Leica script there where it says Leica camera, Leica, and then Leica camera, Wetzlar, Germany. And then also this has a touch screen. So the Leica M10 did not have a touch screen where this does. So like if you want to change certain things on the screen or whatever, you can use the touch screen. But also the M10P versus the M10 has a quieter shutter as well than the M10, and the M10 was certainly quiet, but the M10P is much quieter in terms of the shutter. Let me see if I'll take a picture here, and just so you can hear how quiet the shutter is. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's a very dampened kind of a shutter sound. So if I hear play, that's just what I took. I wasn't focused or anything like that. But you can see the touch screen allows you to double tap to zoom in on certain places and then double tap to zoom back out. Like if I want to double tap on that area, I can, you know, just to zoom in like the top right there. So I can kind of zoom in and check my focus and stuff. So that's kind of nice versus the M10, which didn't have the touch screen. But granted, that is sort of a minor change. Other than the touch screen and the script on top and the quieter shutter, everything else between the M10P and the M10 are pretty much the same. It's the same 24 megapixel image, the same sensor, and you know, all that kind of stuff, the same form factor and all that. I didn't like the earlier versions of the digital M cameras because they were thicker, and so they always didn't feel like a traditional film Leica camera to me. And I'm someone that did own the Leica M6 TTL, and I also owned the M7 at one point, which are both film cameras, you know, many years ago. So me and Leica kind of go way back, and I really wanted that film feel, whereas the prior Leica digital M's didn't feel as much like a Leica M film camera to me, just because they were thicker. So it would always kind of just remind you that it was a different, you know, camera than a film camera. Whereas as soon as the Leica M10 came out, they announced that it was the same thickness as basically a Leica M3. So in the hand, this feels exactly like an Leica M3 or a Leica film camera, which to me is kind of important. I wanted that feel and that look. You know, my grandfather had a Leica M3 that my mom now has. I think that he bought in the late 50s. And, you know, I've shot with that before. Like when I was in college, I borrowed that camera and shot with it and stuff. And so it just goes back to the traditionalism and the classic feel of the camera to me. And you know, that's why I really like the current iteration of the Leica M10 because it is the same size as the Leica film camera, which to me is something that's really good. And then of course the other difference on the M10P is that you don't have the red dot. Instead you've got this cover here with the little flat blade screw there, which I kind of like. You know, a lot of times the red dot can be a little bit showy when you're out in public or out doing street photography. People kind of notice it, and a lot of times photographers put like black gaffer's tape or whatever over the red dot just to kind of cover it up. So with the M10P model, you don't need to do that, and I think it just looks cooler too without having the red dot there. And for those that are wondering what the P stands for, it stands for professional. So the P models tend to be quote-unquote professional models, although tons of professionals shoot with the non-P model, so there's not really that much of a difference these days. But the other thing about the P models is that they do tend to retain their value a little bit better than the non-P models as well on the secondhand market when you go to sell them. The other thing in terms of lenses is the 50 Summilux lens is literally my favorite lens pretty much in the world, and that's this lens right here. It is just an amazing lens. The performance of it, the tonality of it, and everything is just amazing. A great performing lens. And then I've also got the 35 Summilux right here, which is mounted onto the camera. This lens here, you've seen a review in my channel of it before. This is actually the 7 Artisan 75mm, which is a very inexpensive lens, but it's a f1.25, so it's almost like the 75mm Leica Noctilux, which is like a $13,000 lens, whereas this lens is only like $450. So check my review for that. I'll try to post that up on the top right. But I did do a prior review of the 75mm 7 Artisans. The Summilux lenses are certainly expensive, although they're not the most expensive lenses that Leica makes. The most expensive lenses that Leica makes are the Noctilux series, but the Summilux lenses are certainly not inexpensive. I think they range from anywhere from like mid 3,000s up to almost 5,000. But they're very fast. They're f1.4, and they perform exceedingly well in terms of the glass, and especially the weight and size of them. It's almost amazing how well they perform given the weight and size of them. Summilux lenses are really, really nice. That being said, you can get slower lenses like the Leica Summicron lenses, and those are no slouch. I mean, those are great performers as well. It's just that you won't get the speed. Their maximum speed is f2, whereas the Summilux maximum speed is f1.4. Which is something that I really like. I like the faster lenses, and of course they provide a really nice creamy bokeh to them, and a nice look to them and all that. And then also here on the screen you see my Leica M bag that I currently am using. It's by Billingham, and I don't think I've reviewed this bag in my channel yet, so I will review this in a future video. This Billingham bag. This is the Billingham Small Hadley, I think they call it, or Hadley Pro Small is what they call it, in the sage color. And I really like this bag as well. It's very stylish and functional, and I will do a review video on that bag in the future. So let's take a close-up look at the Leica M10-P. And yeah, I know I've kind of rambled a little bit in this video on the Leica M-System and all that, but I wanted to kind of just do a video where I did that, where I just wasn't, reading a script or something like that, and just sort of my general overall feelings and talking about why I'm such a fan of the Leica M camera system. Just a really great camera system. But it's not like a luxury item where you're paying a lot and you're not getting necessarily a lot of performance there. You're just paying for looks or for a name. This is more of a high-end item. Not really I wouldn't classify it as a luxury item. I'd classify it as sort of a premium item where you're paying a lot, but you're also getting a lot of performance for that. So that's a little bit different than something that's just like jewelry or something like that. You know what I mean? Yes, it's very expensive, and it is sort of definitely on the high end in terms of what it compares with in terms of other makes. But you're getting a lot of performance out of the system and out of the camera and the lenses, and so I don't think the price is in vain. So thanks for looking at my look of the Leica M-System, and particularly the Leica M10-P camera. And for a community discussion, I will be hanging out in the comments section, and also check the description. I'll try to put links to some of this stuff as well, so you can see current pricing and things like that. See you in my next video.